friend, and welcome to Borgcast Original Series 2.24 with Anne-Marie and Peter.
Hello! I might be a bit drunk, just to warn you.
More than a bit.
I've been drinking since 2.
And it's now...
What, 8 o'clock or something?
9:15.
Oh.
I've had 1.5 so far.
I don't know how many I've had.
No.
But it's the time of year, so there we go. Okay, well, let's leap straight into the ultimate computer. My life. Written by Lawrence N. Wolfe, who was an early computer buff. Well, at least the first script was, and then that was turned into a telly play by Dorothy Fontana, as Wolfe's script barely featured the Enterprise crew and was just all about the computer.
If you're writing a show for the Star Trek, yeah.
Worth having Kirk and stuff in it. Anyway, directed by John Meredith Lucas. It's his second directing stint, having been uncredited for his work on Obsession. He'd written 2 episodes previously, including Last Time's Partner Force, and he's a producer during season 2, and he was so interested in Lawrence's script that he decided he wanted to direct it.
Captain's log, stardate 4731.3. The M5 Multitronic unit has taken over total control of the Enterprise.
I can't run a starship with 20 crewmen.
The M5 can.
That thing murdered one of my crewmen, and now you tell me you can't turn it off?
Sir, sensors are picking up 4 Federation starships.
Base is firing.
Hit on the Lexington.
We're firing again, sir.
The Excalibur, a direct hit.
The Hood and Potemkin are moving off.
Base is firing, Captain.
Lexington, hit again.
There's your murder charge. Deliberate, calculated. That thing is killing men and women. 4 starships, 1,600 men and women.
It misunderstood.
I believe the only way to stop the Enterprise is to destroy her. Request permission to proceed.
So you open with seeing a space station.
Yeah, this is reused footage from... I always get the 2 Tribbles stories from Deep Space Nine in this mixed up. Trouble with Tribbles?
Trouble with Tribbles,
Trouble with
yeah.
Tribbles, yes. Yeah. The remastered version uses a different design of space station, just because it can.
Fair enough. And they've been summoned there, and this guy beams down, and Kirk's really not happy, and he's Commodore Wesley, not Crusher. And he gives orders for some war games, which immediately made me think of Kohlrabi.
Okay, so we have a combination. We have them being held by Commodore Enright, who's the commander of Starbase 6. Can you guess who did the voice?
No, was it Gene Roddenberry?
No, it doesn't do voices. If there's a spare voice, it's James Doohan, isn't it?
Oh, okay, fair enough.
And then you've got Commodore Bob Wesley, which just made me giggle because my CO at the Air Cadets is called Wesley.
He is, isn't he?
Yeah. He's played here by Barry Russo, last seen in Red as Lieutenant Commander Giotto, the security chief from Devil in the Dark. He's in The Flying Nun. And 47 episodes of a series called The Young Marrieds, which ran from 1964 to 1966, which focused around young couples with problems in their relationships.
Nice.
Wow, I really want to watch that. The character return in the animated series, but voiced by...
Oh, I don't know.
James Doohan! Fine. Get with the programme!
Okay, fine. Anyway, he says you're here to play war games. Kirk, you're going to be the fox in the hunt, and they're going to install the M5 computer designed by Daystrom, as in the later Daystrom Institute.
Exactly. Although, by the end of the story, you do rather wonder why he's so revered in later Trek series.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, they do say he designed all the computers that go in the ships of this time.
Yes. So he's made a name for himself. Unfortunately, now he flushes it down the toilet.
Yes. And apparently it's the computer is the ultimate in vessel control. Some of the crew are going to be removed because they're not needed. And this is supposed to make you think, oh, no. And I'm just thinking, well, yeah, that makes sense. If there's At this stage, at this point, I'm thinking that's a good idea. You know, try it out, see what happens. So there's going to be a crew of 20, and Kirk's like, I can't run it on a crew of 20. And it's like, but you don't need to because the computer will. And this is part of a trial. And so far, this to me is all completely fine. And Kirk is just being a Luddite. And then after the teaser, which is supposed to make you go, oh no, they're replacing people.
Ba, ba, ba.
But, you know.
You got to remember at this point, automation was rising in factories. So people were being laid off because they were not being replaced by computers as such, by automation. So this would have hit people in the fields because it's like, oh, my dad lost his job. Or, you know. So that's where this is coming from, basically.
Yeah, but isn't that like literally what happened with the Luddites? Like, you know, they should have learnt from that, you think?
Maybe. But it's the way people are treated when that happens, I suppose.
No, that is true. But then at this stage, it's just a trial.
And also, there's the whole theme going through this. They're stopping human beings being involved in exploration and stuff.
No, which is not fair, and I get that. But what Daystrom says early on, and it sounds different later when he first says it, it's freeing up people from dangerous space exploration. And my thinking at the time was, yes, your initial exploration is done by non-crewed ships when it's the danger, and when the situation has been established, then you do stuff with people.
Right.
Anyway. That was my thinking at the start. The situation does change quite drastically later on.
It goes south quite quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah. So you've got McCoy sort of complaining, because of course he would, and says, you know, there's nothing to replace the surgeon until he's not needed because everybody's circuits. And then Spock says he knows Dr. Daystrom. Scotty is asked to give the relevant power to the computer, and I just love his lack of enthusiasm.
Yes. He's really... No, you'll have to ask the captain about that.
Yeah. And then he's like, why is this M5? And he's like, oh, M1 to 4 were not entirely successful. It made me think immediately of Babylon 5.
Yeah, I know we don't talk about M4. Dr. Richard Daystrom, you recognised him?
I did!
Played by William Marshall. He's best known as Blackula.
Oh my God, he is, isn't he? Yes. Fuck! Oh, I love that film, though.
Oh, it's a wonderful film, yes. A blaxploitation film with a black Dracula.
Blackula. The Black Avenger, rising from his tomb to fill the night with horror. Blackula, Dracula's soul brother, deadlier even than he.
You know, he is a strange dude.
I mean, he's really good in this role. He's full of himself, his achievement. He plays that really well. He's got power. He's got that sense of authority, and he's got the height as well, which helps.
But also, he has. I'm not sure what it is, but he has some form of accent. He hasn't.
African,
yes, and in other words, he's there being.
That's a really good move by the show's producers to hire him.
Yeah,
that is undoubtedly the best thing about this story is the casting of William Marshall, because he's brilliant in this.
Because he's brilliant. There he is, an incredibly powerful, gifted, articulate black man, and he isn't there sounding
a genius.
I mean,
all right, he's a bit mad as well, but you know, he is the genius.
He's a genius, and there he is, you know, sounding like you said, African. He's not sounding like a white person.
And then you got the M5, which has a display with multiple animated coloured lines, which was reproduced in the lower decks for their. Can't remember the name of the ship in that, but we'll be covering that in a few months' time, won't we? And it's voiced by...
I'm guessing James Doohan.
Well done!
Can you open my next beer? I'm playing catch-up.
He's a busy
man. Behind.
He's a busy man.
I'm behind.
It has to be said, does the M5 take you from Birmingham to Bristol? Oh. Hey, that's a parochial joke.
Just a little bit. Yeah. Has he got that funny dog leg by Worcester?
Yes.
But then Kirk is saying that there are things that men must do to remain men, to which your response was wang.
Yes, of course. Computer can't do that for you. Well, not yet, anyway.
And then McCoy says, you know, did you see the love light in Spock's eyes, talking about the computer? And Kirk is saying that this is setting off a load of alarm bells for him. The thing is wrong and it's dangerous. And he's saying, is this me? Am I afraid of losing my prestige?
He's really good in these scenes.
And he is very good.
Up until about 2/3 of the way through the story, this is like William Shatner's best performance for a long while.
He's really good because he is questioning himself and the actor is not hamming it up.
He's got a sort of sense of melancholy about him. It's quite subtle. Shocking.
I mean, he's really good performance.
Yeah.
But at the time, I just thought, Kirk wouldn't necessarily be worried about losing his prestige, but Shatner bloody would. And then they do an initial very basic test, and it's working really well with navigation, saying Sulu isn't needed.
Chekhov looks really bored, doesn't he?
He does. But the thing is, I'm sure in Next Gen that they say that the computer is doing more of the navigation and everything else than people are.
Yeah, well, you don't have a separate navigator and pilot, basically. It's not pilot.
Helm.
What do they call Helm and navigator is combined.
Yeah.
And that's thanks to computers doing a lot of the work.
Yeah,
for
which
you.
is so some again at this stage seems good to me.
Mm-hmm.
And also as well, bearing in mind that I've seen Next Gen, I have watched Next Gen before I watched this. My automatic response is, well, yeah, if the computer's doing more, that's why they've got things like stellar cartography and other big departments devoted to science, because they're not having to run the ship as much.
Exactly, yeah.
And then they're going to send an away team down to this planet, and Kirk says it's going to be him and McCoy and names 3 people. One of the differences is in some particular expert, the name of which I've forgotten, and the computer chooses a different one based on... The other one is more inexperienced in terms of lower rank, but has relevant experience in this area, so the computer chose him. And you can go, oh, okay, fair enough. And says that Kirk and McCoy are not essential personnel. And my immediate response was, Kirk just always sends himself down when he doesn't need to. All captains do, but he's not... And the thing is, it's like, I'm not essential personnel. And it's like, it doesn't mean you're not essential overall. It means you're not needed
essential
to go...
for that away
That
team.
particular... And you're not.
I mean, the question is more over McCoy's...
Oh, that would be
it's
my
like,
question.
If somebody's injured, what are you going to do? I suppose the computer would argue it, then send down a medic after that. But anyway.
I think it would have made more sense if the computer had chosen a medic, not necessarily McCoy.
Yeah.
Because you're going into an unknown situation, you need somebody with medical capabilities to look after the crew because you don't know what will happen. Mm-hmm. So I think that would have made more sense, a medic, not necessarily McCoy. And no, you don't need the captain to beam down. They just like to. So again, there's a little bit of question mark over no medic beaming down, but, otherwise, again, I'm still with the computer at this point. Then you find that M5 is turning off systems, and it's supposed to be, but nobody's there. So it's energy saving. It's just gone into eco mode.
Fair enough.
And then huricles and sensors are picking up a vessel. And the M5 immediately, having done this War Games trial thing before, is perceiving this as a threat. Now, as it happens, no one's on it, but it's still got an important cargo, but M5 blows it up.
Yes, so this is an automated ship which... in the original version is represented by the...
Botany Bay. Botany Bay. Oh, no.
Yes, it's just reusing footage from Spacehead, which is completely inappropriate because that vessel is so old. It should not... They say it's old here, but even so, it's far too old to be used for the purpose. To give them credit, I think, the remastered version uses the freighter that the design that's used in the animated series. So we'll come to see that later on. So, okay, points for the remastered version in this one, I think.
Fair enough. My notes disappear. I think I gave up and drank beer.
Yeah, there's a bit of first bit of the War Games, effectively, and Commodore Wesley calls Captain Kirk a dunce, Captain Dunce, because he's not needed, apparently.
Yeah, because it goes well or something.
Kirk goes off to sulk in his quarters. McCoy goes to comfort him.
With a drink, which is nice.
With a couple of drinks, yes. Finnegal's Folly, which I looked up and isn't a thing in anything else, so that's a thing purely to McCoy's own personal cocktail. And Kirk quotes, "All I ask is a tall ship," which is a poem, Sea Fever, by John Masefield, a.k.a. the author of Box of Delights.
Cue tune here.
Definitely, for this time of year, yes. do watch the Box of Delights if you haven't already. It's a joy and a delight.
Oh, it's amazing.
A joy and a delight. Oh, sorry. And of course, this is quoted again by Kirk in Star Trek V.
All I ask is a tall ship and a star to steer her by.
Melville, John Masefield.
Are you sure about that?
I am well versed in the classics, Doctor.
Then how come you don't know row your boat?
Huzzah. So when the Woden, which is what it's called, gets destroyed, McCoy complains at the lack of an off switch, which, is kind of important.
Is that why Data has one, do you think?
He has, definitely. The Enterprise fires photons and destroys it. McCoy understandably wants to tear Daystrom a new one, and had the Woden been crewed, things have been more tragic. Well, they will be later on. Entering engineering, Kirk gets zapped by a force field that the M5 is engaged around itself, so they can't turn it off. If you had an off switch, they can't turn it off now. But why the hell would you design a computer that could do that?
Well, no, he didn't. It's developed that way. It's evolved.
Right, well, in which case they should have built some safeguards in, shouldn't they? An engineering crewman tries disengaging the power from the M5 and gets disintegrated when the computer directly taps into the warp engines, giving it unlimited power!
Unimaginable power! Unlimited rice pudding!
No laws of robotics applied to the M5, apparently,
no.
at this point.
But the thing
is a bit of an oversight, isn't it?
It is, but the thing is, the guy says, I gave you, when you say, there's no way to turn it off, he says, I gave you the means to defend yourself. I mean, this is Daystrom's done this deliberately. He really is
Yeah, but he also told him it shouldn't murder, but apparently...
Yeah, but murder is killing your own species, and he's not killing computers.
No, they don't make that point, because later on, the whole reason why Kirk wins is because he points out that the M5 is murdered. So it's all a bit... It doesn't stack up, this story, unfortunately.
Well, he doesn't... It does attack Kirk, but doesn't kill him. It stuns him.
No, that's different. But when he kills the crewman, blatantly...
But they say the ensign got in the way, and he was just trying to get to the power conduit.
Well, it shouldn't have been able to have done that. That's the bottom line. I mean, it's just stupid, basically. It's like they're making the whole computer stupid in order for it to be a threat. Kirk underlines they need to regain control of the ship within an hour before the war games are scheduled to commence. Spock suggests using a manual override, which he and Scotty set to doing. Vulcan reflects on how odd it is the M5 has been behaving illogically. McCoy bans Spock from saying that's fascinating, so he goes with...
It was interesting.
Kelly does a great eye roll at this. Daystrom complains that the idea of disconnecting the M5 is it's growing like a child. It literally just killed somebody, you idiots. Why aren't you worried about that? It's all a bit stupid, isn't it? He does point out that it takes 430 people to crew a starship, except for those times when it only takes a handful, of course.
Oh, yeah.
He claims that with the M5, no crew is necessary. So how will it repair itself if it's damaged then? I don't know.
Auto repair circuit.
How will it conduct away missions? I mean, it's already selected a crew for a away mission. It can't do it himself. I mean, interesting in that Lower Deck story that kind of, they beam stuff down to people, don't they? But yeah. McCoy does a bit of digging into Daystrom's background, but only discovers that he's a genius. Well, he's clearly mad from the little we said.
Yeah.
McCoy reasons he's being an overprotective parent. Kirk has to restrain Daystrom when he finds out they're overriding the M5. Kirk orders Sulu and Chekhov to set course back to Starbase 6, but they're still locked out. When Chekhov looks into it, he discovers the M5 has rerouted the primary systems and made it look like things were normal. They quiz Daystrom about the computer's seemingly human behaviour, and he admits he designed it that way because he's mad, basically. Yeah. They arrive at the war games, which bizarrely only involve Constitution-class ships, well, for reasons of cheapness.
Oh, this is so shit. The copy and paste on this is...
You get both in the original version, which I readily admit is absolutely awful, and in the remastered version as well. It's just copy and paste as well. It's like, you could have done, two other ships.
Much better.
Put two different designs in, because no point do they say all these ships are Constitution class.
No.
That would have looked far better, but no. Cheap,
Missed
cheap,
opportunity.
Cheap. All outgoing comms are blocked. The M5 locks onto the Lexington. We see a bridge, which has a different captain's chair, which is nice. It's high-backed, which is reused from the Mirror Universe Enterprise.
Oh, okay.
Shatner starts overacting, unfortunately, at this point, as he utters, "There's got to be a way of getting the M5! There's got to be a way!" Oh dear. Commodore Bob hails and berates Kirk, reporting that they have 53 dead, so things are serious.
Yeah.
Kirk, in turn, accuses the M5 via Daystrom of murder. The genie arse admits that it was his brain engrams that were the basis for the M5 design, so no wonder it's a bit cray-cray. Spock points out he might get somewhere talking to his creation. They intercept Commodore Bob, hailing Starfleet Command to get permission to destroy the Enterprise, and all Daystrom is worried about is the M5.
Yeah.
And Kirk taps into this to get him to act. The Doctor tries to talk his computer into not murdering, which you'd think would have been the first thing you programmed in. Daystrom goes full crazed genius, and McCoy's concerned he's having a nervous breakdown. Well, it doesn't take a doctor to realise that.
Yeah.
He talks about the other ships being poised to be crushed.
Though, it does take, on a starship, a doctor to diagnose that.
Yeah, right. Well, I could diagnose it just from watching it.
No, but it wouldn't count because you're not a doctor, is what I'm saying.
Right, yeah, but, anybody could have.
Yeah.
He talks about the other ships being toys to be crushed, and Spock nerve pinches him to prevent further embarrassment.
Why didn't they do that earlier?
Well, indeed. Kirk asks the M5 why it needs to survive. It claims it needs to survive to protect humanity from the dangers of space, so it's murdering people to do that. Oh, okay. Must you survive by murder? Kirk logically asks. And rather than quoting Asimov, whose 3 laws of robotics have been around since the 1940s, so there's no excuse for the writers not to have realised this. Hey-ho. They're a thing in Trek by TNG, aren't they? But apparently not at this point. Instead, the M5 claims murder is against the laws of man and God. Wow. Kirk points out the machine has murdered. What is the penalty for murder, he asks. Death is the reply.
Oh, we thought we got beyond that.
Really? The 24th century? We're still doing that? Wow. Feebly, that's all it takes for the M5 to self-destruct in seconds with nary a whisper smoke. This is the 4th time Kirk has talked a computer to death. I would argue it's the weakest one by a long, long way.
Yeah.
Because, at least for the Apple, all right, the effects were shit, but there was a load of smoke and stuff that happens.
Yeah. And this is just so rubbish because the penalty isn't death. And it certainly shouldn't be. So it should say something like imprisonment, at which point he then shuts himself off for the rest of the Enterprise and isolates himself.
Well, that would have been far better, wouldn't it? But
it would, yes.
But not as dramatic, I suppose. But this isn't dramatic, though. It just goes off.
Yeah, exactly. There isn't.
Wow.
It's not like you can say, well, they took this line because it resulted in better drama.
Yeah.
No.
It did not.
There isn't any, so what's the excuse for going down that route?
Kirk orders Scotty and Spock to pull its plug to make sure, but they're still in trouble as they can't control the ship yet, and Kirk prepares them for the worst. Although ordering them to abandon ship might have been the best precaution.
Just a little bit, yeah. Oh, no, unless, of course, they can't, because none of the escape pods will launch.
I'm sure that wouldn't have been controlled by the computer. Stupidly, Scotty hasn't prioritised getting communications back online. Kirk orders power to be cut to signal they're no threat, although the engines are still clearly working on the remastered version. I can't remember. I don't think you see a shot of the Enterprise in the original, but the remastered, the glow on the end of the nacelles is still there.
No, it shouldn't be if it's dead.
Thankfully, Commodore Bob calls off the attack. A good Commodore? What? This can't be! It's the best Commodore we've had so far, certainly.
Yeah.
McCoy reports that Daystrom will need to be committed to a rehabilitation centre. Wow, what a surprise. Spock asks how Kirk knew Wesley wouldn't think dropping power wasn't an M5 trap, and the captain responds that he gambled on Wesley's humanity and compassion, which computers don't have. Which, that's quite nice, I like that. Yeah. Spock's closing joke, joke, in inverted commas, is to suggest impressing McCoy's memory patterns on a computer would lead to an entertaining flood of illogic. Wow. Given the loss of life in this story, that jokey ending feels so out of place.
Yeah. But again, I bet the studio insists on this. I don't think you can blame the writers of the episodes for these comic endings after a tragic episode. I think that's the studio.
It was the way of the times.
Yeah.
It's a great performance from William Marshall. He's got a real gravitas.
Yeah, really good performance. And for most of the episode, it's a really good performance from William Shatner.
Yes, he is. Unfortunately, he goes off the rails towards the end.
But for most of it, he is very good. But I think sometimes you find with Shatner is that he is good when he's up against someone else who's good. Yeah. What happens in the last third? Well, Daystrom's out for the count.
Yeah.
So he hasn't got William Marshall to act against, whereas in the first 2/3...
I don't know, some of his acting against William Marshall at the end isn't so good. So.
Yeah, okay.
For a computing genius, it has to be said, and particularly considering how revered he is in Trek going forward, Daystrom is both an idiot and clearly off his rocker.
Yeah.
The story is more than a bit stupid, a product of fear of the new computing technology. And, let's face it, today it would be AI, wouldn't it? Because everybody's paranoid about that.
And it's just, it's always right to be cautious with new technology, because when somebody comes along and says, this can do amazing things, sometimes it's a total fuck up. So it's always right to be cautious. But when a new technology comes along, and yes, some jobs go, but new jobs arise as a result of the different ways of doing things.
Ultimately, you're going to turn this ship over, which has got, real destructive power to a computer. You're going to have some fail-safes built in, surely.
Or
surely.
The first thing you try it on is a really not very well-armed science vessel.
Well, I mean, it's just madness that they do this. It
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense
It
at all.
does. So if they're trying to do something without safeguards, if they've got to the point where you're just like, no, we need to try it without, which is fair enough. At some point, you've got to take the stabilizers off. Fine, you do that with a ship that's low powered and low status. To be honest,
Yeah, definitely, rather than the flagship of the
yeah,
fleet.
you don't know. It's just. I'm afraid there's too much about this episode, from my point of view, that doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't stack up, does it?
No.
That's the problem. I mean, there's a good story there, but it's ruined by bad writing, basically.
I agree. Wow, that doesn't happen often.
No, indeed. Will everybody else agree? Let's find out.
So what Jeff says is this is another surprisingly relevant episode. Though I believe most of the fears of AI are overblown, William Marshall is great, and this must be the ultimate Kirk versus computer story.
Well, I don't think it is, because it's so poop in the way it pans out. So,
but is Kirk's acting the best in this one?
Only for 2/3 of it.
Fair enough.
And we've heard from Boss. I think this one might be considered a classic. Well, it probably is.
Yeah.
It's definitely a classic theme about man going up against machine and the fears of technology making humans redundant. This is something that is very relevant today with the growth in AI. This is how I like my Star Trek, when it feels ahead of its time. Oh dear. Rather than being representative of its time.
Yeah.
Maybe it did back then, yes. It just feels crap now, doesn't it? It's also clearly influenced by many things that followed. Oddly, though, when Kirk was being told how he could be replaced by the M5, the first thing that came to mind was the episode of Father Ted, where Mrs. Doyle was brought a tea-making machine.
Oh, God, yes!
Later on, when it started to draw more power, my mind went to Superman 3, which I've not seen in a long while, and I don't really want to go back to, so... The story is relatively straightforward. Even if I'd had no recollection of it, I would guess that the computer was going to go bad. Yeah, no surprises there. I like that it took over quietly and efficiently. It wasn't given a silly voice, which is true.
Yes, true.
It was good to have all the crew there, including Chekhov and Sulu at the same time. I know, shocking, isn't it? While the focus was still on the big three, I did enjoy the interplay between them all, particularly Spock and McCoy.
Yeah.
We also got to see a few spaceships, and the Enterprise firing its phasers for the first time in ages. The way it was revolved did seem very similar to the Changeling, with Kirk talking the M5 into destroying itself. That was much better, actually. I prefer the Changeling. Yeah. He did have good experience of evil computers, though, after encountering a couple in Season 1. Again, the light-hearted ending seemed out of place when so many people had died.
Yep.
But overall, this was a better episode than those we have seen recently.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Arguably, yes.
Yeah. What did Sampo and Yona make of this?
Hello.
Hello.
So we just watched the ultimate computer.
What happened in it?
Well, the Federation found out again that just handing over all control to an artificial intelligence is not a good idea. Although I was starting to think, was this the first time? Because this is a plot line that we see again and again in the future.
What about the robot?
Yeah, the floating one. Yeah, you're right. Okay, I mean, superpower things have taken over the ship before, but this time it was like something the Federation made itself, and I thought, well, this would be a good idea. Spoiler, It wasn't, and it never will be.
How could an AI lead anything? Because humans seem to do it with their emotions and compassion.
Well, I guess the point of the episode was that it was more human than it should have been, and I don't know, was that the problem, or was that why it was so good at what it did? I don't know,
but can you explain why Kirk let his guard down so easily? I mean, some other episodes where he was tried to be replaced, he fought back, but now he just depressed and drank booze.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a bit one thing when you're ordered to give command to someone else, but here it was supposed to be just an exercise, but he saw that it symbolized a possible future where he wasn't needed, and so maybe he was depressed at the sort of big picture instead of what was happening at the moment. And I think it was maybe a bit more depth to Kirk that we're used to seeing, at least. And like you said, but what drove him to drinking was that the captain of the other ship, I can't remember his name, but he basically called him a slur or something. So the captain useless, I can't remember the word, but I mean that was totally unnecessary.
Yeah, it seemed cruel.
Yeah, wasn't calling him useless when he was trying to get him to stop the attack, was he?
So no one went to the planet then?
No. the AI had better things to do. I mean, it.
Okay, and the computer was right, made the away team.
That was one of the few good decisions it made. I mean, leaving the captain at least out.
He didn't even say that he should go. I mean, the M5 didn't need to go there.
And you understood before the crew that it was turning off the power because
there was no one there.
Exactly.
It saved power. It seemed smart. Electricity is expensive.
Yeah,
I totally relate.
I haven't kept count. Is this like the third time that Kirk has spoken a computer to death?
Probably.
I know. I mean, I'm sure that he's done it at least once.
Kirk used the same thought I had when just before the machine maker, Daystrom had this speech about how machines are planned to save people's lives, and at the same time he killed, or it killed, or what's the machine pronouns?
They killed, I don't know. Maybe it's an it. Maybe it's
offensive to use they.
We have to ask the computer for its pronouns, I guess.
It really killed, and it wasn't a problem.
And it took someone to point it out to it. So Daystrom also tried to talk the machine down.
Yeah, but I cannot talk to myself like reason, so...
That's a very good point. I think Shatner was a bit worried, like, okay, he can really act when he was like, I am so great. I am so great.
I am so great. I am so great.
There was when they said about Einstein. What was it?
Yeah, I mean, they said something like they weren't continuously inventing new stuff.
Yeah, or even Einstein wasn't inventing anything without Mileva Moritz, but...
You always have to mention that when someone mentions Einstein.
Yes, because this is the one thing I know about Einstein.
But I mean, on the whole, I quite liked this. I mean, it was...
actually, I liked it too.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost philosophical at the start, and it was...
Yes.
It was like mostly...
I love this kind of thinking. What's the word? Thinking.
Me think good.
I am so great. I am so great.
Yeah, well, let's see what we get next time. But until then, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Yes, next time we'll be recording feedback in 2024.
Yay, 2024.
The future.
May Christmas be with you.
Exactly. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, that's a good point. Where you say, it's more human than it should have been, is that why it was so good at getting the away team right and all the rest of it? Because it had a human element that the people at the time didn't realise it had in it. Is that why it was as good as it was before it went wrong, if you see what I mean? It wasn't just logic. It also had some humanity in there. Is that why it was good?
No, it's all rather overshadowed by its murderous tendencies, isn't it? So
yeah.
Yes. I think this is the first time that the Federation have turned over control to computers. We've had computers that have been in control of other places, and yes, the changeling as well, but that wasn't the Federation's design. So this seems somehow more stupid somehow.
Yeah. Talking of Einstein, I think it's Mileva Maric you're talking about, who, while they were together, he produced all this good stuff, and then they weren't, and then he didn't. So,
sus.
Very sus. Very sus. In terms of why does Kirk let his guard down so easily, I think partly it's because he's ordered to, as Sampo said, but I also think partly it's a sort of a, if I don't, that means I'm too proud, and so I must in order to... And
maybe he was hoping the computer was going to fail, which
ultimately
he was proved right, so yes.
Yeah.
Well done, Kirk.
So that Dawnstall thing, or whatever it was...
Dawnstall, yes.
Yeah, is
that's not a thing. No.
It's not a thing, it's just completely made up.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, they do say it's a nickname from the Academy, so...
Oh, right, fair enough. And you're right, this whole thing about machines saving lives but killing, that's illogical, very illogical, and ought to have, just not happened really early on.
It's stupid, but there we go.
Yes.
Let's find out what the Llama God thought.
Llama Scotty, Fixie Tree, Yayeg, Noyeg. The only way to win is not to play. Now, this is a particularly timely episode here, as it warns of the dangers of travelling from Birmingham to Cornwall on one of Britain's greatest motorways. No, actually, no, that's not what this is about at all. No. This is relevant because it's all about AI, the adoption of AI, artificial intelligence systems, and the impact that it has on the humans and the jobs that it's basically taking, and whether or not it should take them. So, yeah, this is very forward-thinking, I'd imagine, from the 1960s, when computers were first becoming more mainstream and more popularly used. It remains relevant, and perhaps even more so nowadays. The point it makes here, of course, is one that people are still failing to get these days, which is why it remains relevant, and that is that humans need to be involved in the decision-making process. Sure, AI systems that we use these days might not be developed along the same lines as the M5, and yes, it's the M5. The M1 obviously sank into a swamp, the M2 also sank into a swamp, the M3 caught fire, fell over, then sank into a swamp, and the M4 obviously vanished 24 hours after becoming operational, so we're left with the M5. But yeah, the way that this has been developed is obviously slightly different, you'd imagine, to how things like ChatGPT and all those crappy AI artwork generators are being churned out, but still the principle remains the same, in that sure, these systems can mimic and learn and steal and regurgitate, but there's not necessarily ever any accounting for the decisions they make and the process they follow to get to the decisions that they make. So yeah, human input is always important. Again, yes, obviously in this particular scenario, the goal is potentially good. It's an attempt to reduce the risk to human crewed starships, to remove the danger to man, although you could go off on the whole thing about danger is our game, but they don't do that one in this episode, which is curious. So obviously here there's quite a worthy goal as opposed to just, hey, can we do some stuff for free? Although, I guess not costing human lives makes it free in a way, so there are kind of parallels here. So although it's a bit worthy, it's essentially the same problem at the end of the day. The thing about this episode is, of course, we spent a lot of the episode waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it does, because it shows that once again, it's foolish to automate a starship like this because it will have hilarious consequences. Obviously, I say again, this was the first time we were done. Starfleet clearly learns no lessons, because following the end of this episode, they tried again in Lower Decks, and they tried again in Season 3 of Picard. So yeah, well done everyone. Although, unfortunately, that is also very true to the real world, because, as discussed in the previous episode, those who learn from history are doomed to repeat mistakes anyway by trying to think that they're better and they actually understood the mistakes that were made last time. And in this case, no, not at all. Obviously, the mistake here was that Dystrom gave it the mind of a man. Obviously, what he should have done was give it the mind of a woman. That would have probably gone a lot better, but hey, there we go. That was the 1960s, wasn't it? But yeah, in a way, he uses shortcuts, and again, we see the folly of man here, using shortcuts to try and become kind of a god, trying to reach too far. That's not necessarily a bad thing, trying to reach too far, but overreaching without understanding the consequences and putting into action before you know the consequences. That would be like, say, the real-world example of putting cars on the road with autopilots that aren't fully tested or trustworthy. Yeah, we wouldn't want to do that, something like that. That would just be crazy, anyone trying anything like that, wouldn't it? So yeah, again, plenty of lessons, very, very relevant. And ultimately what this becomes is, of course, an episode where Kirk once again talks the computer to death, this time because it's on the verge of a breakdown, and so's Daystrom, which makes the whole end of the episode where Kirk basically provokes him before Spock never pinches him. It's not particularly sensitive of him, was it? Not particularly the stuff that you'd expect, but I guess they were running out of time a little bit, so I guess you can kind of forgive Kirk's action from that point of view. But yes, it's another Kirk talking the Enterprise to death. And what's interesting in this one is that Kirk convinces the computer to self-terminate by making it aware that it's responsible for the deaths of other people, which is fine, except for the fact that apparently the penalty for murder is the death sentence. Really? In the Federation? Really? That doesn't seem particularly Federation-like, does it? In fact, I think back in the Menagerie, we're told that they're going to Telos 3 is the only crime that carries a death sentence in the Federation, so it's not particularly accurate, but also interesting they expect us to have forgotten that by this point. So yeah, that's not quite the Federation we expect, is it? But yeah, that weirdness aside, this isn't a bad episode, although Joe did comment when it ended that was just fucking weird. But yeah, I guess it's a typical hard sci-fi story, this one, really, about trusting the computer and the AI too much. And although it is pretty much a bottle show on the Enterprise, there's lots of good character stuff between Spock and McCoy, some great comments between them. And Kirk doing a bit of self-reflection also isn't a bad performance either. Shatner could have gone a lot more overblown in this one, and he doesn't, so yeah, that's not too bad either. Although, that said, of course, Spock gets the final line in, which is a good one, but then they all laugh, and then we go back home, forgetting the fact that hundreds and hundreds of men and women have been killed. So yeah, your typical tactless ending to a Star Trek episode there. But it was the 1960s. Yeah, so not a classic, but not toss either, sort of somewhere in the middle, and mostly sad that it's still relevant today. So as ever, I'll be looking forward to finding out what automated scorings this episode has been given by other units. I hope that everyone who's able is going to have a good holiday period soon, and until next time, a glorious Christmas to your cast, and to you all, a good night.
Nice one.
Yeah, we didn't rate this, but I think I'd say, yeah, it's neither classic nor toss as well.
Yeah, I don't know, because...
Which do you veer towards?
I'm veering... I don't think it is a full classic, but I'm veering more towards classic, because the performance of William Marshall, performance in the first 2/3 of Shatner, the fact that the ideas it's discussing are still relevant now, and the fact that they did a bloody good job of casting in terms of, and that takes it for its time.
That was relevance thing is just completely shot in the foot by how stupidly it approaches things, though. I'm sorry. It doesn't work. You know, you can't have an intelligent look at an issue when you're being so stupid about it. So.
I suppose. In terms of should they given it the mind of a woman, well, possibly another woman.
A woman?
But not me.
Yeah.
Because, like, everybody would be fucking dead.
Yes, be even more violent.
It would be even more violent if that woman was me. So, no, not every woman. And no, it's not true that... No,
I would hope not.
No. So, there is something of a cliche that women are more peaceful than men.
They never met you.
No. Now, maybe I'm not your stereotypical woman, but also...
Are you saying you're not normal?
Possibly. But then, I also, to be honest, know a fair few other angry women.
Yes, there are a few around, particularly married to clergy.
Yes, that's true!
What does that say?
No, you are not wrong. Actually, can I think of an unangry clergy wife?
Let's not dwell on that.
Yeah, but no, you've got a point though. That there's a thing. You're onto something here. Anyway, different subject. Kirk talking a computer to death.
Mm-hmm.
My favourite talking a computer to death scene is not Kirk, and it's not even Star Trek, it's Doctor Who, and it's Zoe talking the computer to death
fun, yeah.
in... It's the
Invasion.
War Game. Or is it Invasion? No, it's Invasion, yeah. That's my favourite talking a computer to death scene.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to beat that for me, personally. Is he right that there isn't the death sentence in the Federation because apart from the menagerie
Yes,
thing?
they specifically say in the menagerie this is the only thing you can receive the death penalty for going to that particular planet. And now they've just said that you get a death penalty for murdering. Okay. Never mind.
So that's like an extra level of fuck up. It's not just fuck up in terms of they couldn't envision a future without the death penalty.
They can't even get their own continuity.
Yeah.
Right. Whoops.
Wow. So that's going more towards the toss now.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean.
Quite right. The whole Dangerous Our game isn't brought up, but then that was particularly stupid. And you'd think they'd learnt from, this when it came to Lower Decks, although that gets a pass because it's partly a satire. Whereas when they do it in Picard, that's just absolutely asinine. And, it was one of the reasons why Picard was just so ridiculously ruined towards the end. Because you didn't watch it, did you? Season 3 of Picard. They basically combine all the ships in the fleet controls to one computer.
That's clever.
Because that was going to work, wasn't it? And then, surprise, surprise, the computer is taken over. Wow. Absolutely rubbish. Absolutely woeful. Anyway, I won't carry on about Picard season 3.
Okay, fair
Let's
enough.
instead.
Oh, let's see what Drew and Tracy made of this.
So we just watched The Ultimate Computer.
We did.
And what do you think of that one then?
Well, I thought it was a classic. I thought it was excellent. It's up there with the greatest episodes of Star Trek ever. That's my opinion.
I tried to talk to you about 3 times during this, and you were just like, shh, shh, shh.
I love this. I love this episode. Yeah, it's brilliant.
All right, let's go through some points.
Okay.
So, Commander Wesley.
Is he not Commodore Wesley?
Sorry,
isn't he? Yeah,
Commodore Wesley, you're right.
Yeah.
But so that's where the name kind of originates from.
Maybe.
So we've got this M5 computer.
M5 computer.
That is
M5
taking over
computer.
the Enterprise.
Yes.
And only 20 crew needed.
The pre-teaser, it's all about like the fears of the 60s, like computers taking over humans' jobs. It's like 2023, the same thing, isn't it? With like self-scan checkouts, isn't it? It's very relevant.
Yeah, that's putting people out of jobs now,
AI
isn't it?
taking over all of our jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's relevant.
So Dr. Daystrom.
Oh, I love Dr. Daystrom. He's excellent. He's a good actor. He's a big old bloke, isn't he? Like next to Shatner and Spock.
Very, very tall.
He's a big old guy.
Even next to Scotty.
Yeah, I know.
He was very big.
He's very tall.
Not really right in the head there, was he?
No, he's
100%.
not. He's not, no.
So he kind of builds this computer that thinks he's going to be like the all-seeing, all-doing, can do everything that needs to be done on a starship, but just doesn't have that human element.
Well, he tried to put a human element in it because he uses memory engrams, but he's not the full ticket there. That's the trouble. I liked that it's got the dream team. We had Chekhov,
we did,
Sulu,
we did,
Scotty,
we did,
McCoy, Spock,
Kirk,
and Uhura.
Yeah, the Dream Team. When's the
Dream
last time we've
Team were
seen
on
the
the
whole
bridge.
team there? Yes.
But at one point, when Daystrom come on and he said, "Oh, this is the M5," and like he's gonna do like all of your job and stuff like that, we were like, "Oh, you're like Captain Kirk, pack your bag."
Yeah, that was the theme running through it, wasn't it? Definitely.
P45.
Yeah.
Do they get P45 in like?
Don't know, maybe P47. I would guess on Star Trek.
What P47?
Oh, because 47's a thing, isn't it? In Star Trek,
right,
isn't
okay.
it? Yeah. One of the best bits, and I did say, watch this bit, I love it, is when Spock does the Vulcan neck grip.
And that guy's Daystrom's face was just like, what?
I know, it's just so overreaction. And plus they walk him off. You're not normally able to walk when you've been given a Vulcan neck grip, are you?
But if like Spock is giving him like the grip, but he's also giving him a mind warp at the same time.
I don't know.
Move your feet, move your feet, move your feet.
You don't normally do that. It's a classic Kirk talking the computer to death, isn't it? It's another classic of Star
Talking
Trek.
it to death. He wasn't kind of talking it around. I
Well,
thought
says,
it was kind of
you've committed
romancing
murder. What is the penalty for murder?
Yeah.
Well, it's not actually death, Shatner, because we outlawed the death penalty ages ago.
But not in America, and not in
civilized society. We did.
Well,
anyway,
this was the 60s.
I
liked it.
It's an excellent episode. I'm not saying it's the best episode. It's not Trouble with Tribbles, but I think it's great. I really, really like this episode.
Just fucking say it one more
It's
time.
a classic.
There you go. Three times.
Oh, this is a classic. 100%.
4 times. My goodness.
Yep.
Anyway, I liked it. It was
It's good.
entertaining for me.
It's entertaining. It's entertaining. Yes.
Yeah. Leave it there.
Okay.
See you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It would have to try a little harder to be a classic in my books. Be slightly less stupid.
And me too, but I think I'm more towards Drew than the This Is Toss, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's toss either, but it has huge holes in it, basically.
For me, it's nearly a classic. It doesn't quite get there because of its flaws, but it's mostly enjoyable. As you say, it does have the dream team. Everybody's there. They all get something to do.
Yeah, it's a change, isn't it?
I mean, the guest cast...
Uhura doesn't get much to do, sadly. But,
no, but, the guest cast is great. That it is good, but there are flaws there for me, personally. But I'm glad you enjoyed it.
But yeah, you're right. Daystrom is a big old bloke, isn't he?
Yes. Yes. What does Purry think of this?
Hello, Orgs. A significantly recovered Purry here to talk about the ultimate computer. Now, this episode I actually quite enjoyed it. But it's got an interesting sort of concept to it, I suppose. The idea being that Dr. Daystrom, presumably the name that the Daystrom Institute is named after, comes onto the ship and he's going to fix a computer that's going to make crews almost obsolete. The ship can be run with 20 people and it's making better choices than Kirk. Now, naturally, we all know how this ends. The computer goes mad and starts killing people to try and preserve its own life. Possibly, at some point we shouldn't be building computers with such aggressive self-preservation routines. So plot-wise, it's fairly standard. Don't know if this was a tried and tested thing back then. I can't think of films off the top of my head. What I did like about it is actually a lot of the episode is about Kirk talking to himself or trying to consider whether he is replaceable by a machine and whether it would be a better idea. Yes, it's a little anti-Trek and it's kind of saying that technology isn't always the answer, but actually in this case it's kind of showing that humanity still has something to offer. The way I thought the ending was rushed. I'm getting that out of the way there. They kind of talk the computer to death pretty quickly. But I like the idea that Kirk relied on the Commodore's humanity to predict that he wouldn't just blow the Enterprise out of space. And that was quite good. But there was that bit when the M5 had just done its kind of combat run and it had gone really well, and Kirk is genuinely considering, am I necessary, potentially? Am I obsolete? And am I being silly for being offended by it? And that, I thought, was actually some of the more interesting BT parts. And of course, everyone's going, Spock, you'll be loving this. And Spock's going, no. And again, it's stuff we see today. There's things we want computers to do. For want of a better word, administration. Computers are excellent administrators. They're very good at organising and depositing data and filing it away safely. They're very good tools. But it's weird what people want them to do. They want a computer to be your manager because it'll do it more efficiently than another manager. Now, granted, there's a lot of managers who I don't quite know what they do in the world and what really they bring to things. But having a computer just say, conduct next assignment. It's not always done best. Sometimes a bit of personality in there goes. And again, why are we making computers do art? That's what we're meant to have computers do other things so that we can do. But that's an aside point. Like I say, the episode rattles along pretty quickly. What I liked about the M5 was it didn't go on rants. It spoke very little. If you think of most of our insane computers, they've been quite wordy. And the M5 was actually silent for most of it. It really only spoke when spoken to. And I thought that actually made it quite... it made it arguably a bit more terrifying. It was just, they just said, the M5 is doing this thing now. It's not saying, you don't even have a computer voice saying engaging target, bringing phasers up to full power. It just literally was doing it, and it was the crew doing that. And I thought that actually worked pretty well to put a bit more tension into things. Overall, like I say, it's a fairly cliched thing, at least nowadays it is. But I thought the episode actually took it in a decent way. And like I say, we did some sort of spaceship on spaceship action. And one of the weird things, Dr. Daystrom has an institute named after him. Now, in this, he's a computer pioneer, but his computer also did murder several hundred people. You'd think that maybe someone would be wanting to take his name off the front of it at some point, or definitely, someone might have been reconsidering that in the 24th century and the 25th, but maybe they're more forgiving in the future. Your computer did go nuts and kill several hundred people, but you did invent the Geotronic computer, so you get to keep your institute. How about that? Of course, saying that, we still name stuff after people who did slavery, so who am I to judge, quite frankly? But yeah, overall, quite enjoyed the episode. I thought it was a decent enough episode. We got to see some of the Constitution class ships. So all that remains for me to say is do keep up the good work. I always look forward to the podcast. And a Merry Christmas to yourselves and to everyone out there in podcast land. A Merry Christmas or a happy whatever you celebrate, or an agreeable festive season. But I hope to feed back in the next one where I'm sure I'll be wishing a Happy New Year. But until then, bye for now.
Bye! Yeah, I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, me too. And you're right. In a way, we can't really criticise the Federation for naming an institute after a madman when we name things after slavers.
There is that. Yes, I mean, you would think his name would be Mud, but then again, yes, certain institutes.
Rhodes Scholarship springs to mind.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, but you're right. Kirk's introspection is the best thing in this, and it's some of Shatner's finest acting, to be honest. So, yeah,
and you're right. It's weird what people seem to want computers to do. Because, the idea that the computer can plot courses, which is at the very start, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's logical. The idea that a computer can command or manage people, no, that's bollocks. Although part of me wonders, have the people who think a computer would be better had really arsey shit managers?
Maybe, yeah.
And the computer would be better than the manager they had.
Who could say? But a Merry Christmas to you all.
Talking of Christmas, we tried a Christmas special.
Oh, yes, we
and then we tried another one.
And that didn't work either.
No.
So hopefully
tomorrow, take 3 works.
I will almost guarantee it'll be on this feed, because I don't think there's going to be room on the Borgcast Galactica one. But anyway, on one of the 2 feeds, our Christmas special, which... Hopefully.
We've had 2 failed attempts. So if there isn't one, okay, please, no, we tried.
Yes.
We did.
Gave it 3 tries, in fact.
Yes.
But the next time we record the original series will be on the 4th of January. We'll be covering the Omega Glory.
Oh.
Which is not a Doctor Who thing.
I was going to say that. Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's one of those.
And it's not about the computer either.
No, it's another completely ridiculous title that has nothing to do with the story.
Okay.
Yes. Written by one Gene Roddenberry as well.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, I bet you can't wait.
Oh, how many scantily clad women in this?
At least one. Until then, take care. Merry Christmas.
Happy Christmas.
Cheery bye.
Bye.
The Star Trek theme was written by Alexander Courage, and here was arranged and performed by Drew Barker.
The artwork was created by Andy Palastides.
All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
Find our website at borgcast.libsyn.com.
And we have a YouTube channel as well.
Send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com.
Or you can find us over on Mastodon. Our addresses are on the show notes for this podcast.
Shut it down!
Make it a Bloody Mary.